At 02:30 hours on March 6, 1942, Huub Lauwers sat in a safe house in The Hague, Netherlands, transmitting wireless message to London. Lauwers was radio operator for the Dutch section of Britain's Special Operations Executive SOE, the organization conducting sabotage and resistance operations in occupied Europe. He had been operating in the Netherlands since November 1941, supporting Dutch resistance networks. This transmission would be his last as free agent. German direction-finding equipment had located his transmitter. Abwehr counterintelligence officers were surrounding the building. Within minutes, they would break down the door and capture Lauwers, his radio equipment, his codes, and his message logs. Lauwers would face immediate choice: cooperate with German intelligence or face execution. Most captured agents chose cooperation. Lauwers would choose cooperation, but he would try to warn London. The warning system was called security check. Every SOE radio operator was assigned 2 security checks, distinctive errors inserted into messages that signaled whether transmission was genuine or made under duress. The true security check was deliberate mistake in specific location, perhaps the 15th letter group in every message. The bluff security check was different mistake in different location. Perhaps the 23rd letter group. If operator transmitted with both checks present, the message was genuine. If both checks were absent, operator was compromised in transmitting under enemy control. If only one check was absent, operator might have forgotten, but London should investigate. Lauwers knew his security checks. He had memorized them during training at SOE's facility in southern England. He understood their purpose. When German officers captured him on March 6th, when they threatened execution, when they offered him the chance to save his life by cooperating, Lauwers agreed to transmit under German control, but he deliberately omitted both security checks from his first controlled transmission. The message went to London, clearly indicating compromise. London acknowledged receipt. London asked for more information. London gave Lauwers new instructions. London had ignored the missing security checks. Lauwers transmitted again omitting security checks. London continued treating him as genuine agent. The Germans realized London was not detecting the compromise. They had captured not just one agent, but an entire channel to SOE headquarters. They could use Lauwers' radio to request supplies, weapons, money, and more agents, and London would provide them. This was the beginning of Operation North Pole, the German code name for the operation. The Dutch called it Englandspiel, the England game. For the next 24 months, German Abwehr ran captured SOE radios, requesting agents and supplies from London. SOE obliged. Between March 1942 and April 1944, SOE dropped 54 agents into the Netherlands. All were captured immediately upon landing. SOE dropped 15 tons of weapons, explosives, and equipment. All were seized by German reception committees. The operation was counterintelligence masterpiece for Germany and catastrophic failure for Britain. The architect of the operation was Hermann Giskes, Abwehr officer commanding counterintelligence operations in the Netherlands. Giskes was 43 years old in 1942, experienced intelligence officer who had served in German intelligence since World War I. He understood radio deception, double agents, and how to exploit enemy communications. When his direction-finding teams captured Lauwers and discovered they could operate the radio without London detecting compromise, Giskes immediately understood the potential. Giskes' operation was methodical. Each captured agent was interrogated. Most agreed to cooperate rather than face execution. Those who cooperated were kept in relatively comfortable detention, not tortured, adequately fed, allowed to interact with other captured agents. Those who refused to cooperate were executed. The cooperation was coerced, but not brutal. Giskes wanted agents healthy enough to appear genuine in messages to London. Broken agents who transmitted under torture might make mistakes that would alert London. Cooperative agents who transmitted under threat but without immediate duress would transmit convincingly. The captured radios were operated under German supervision. Agents sat at radio transmitting scheduled messages to London. German officers monitored transmissions to ensure agents sent approved text without inserting warnings. The security checks were deliberately omitted. Occasionally, Giskes would allow one security check to appear, creating impression that agent was stressed or working in difficult conditions but not compromised. London never questioned the pattern. London's failure to detect the deception was not German brilliance, it was British incompetence. The security check system was designed precisely to detect this scenario. SOE headquarters in Baker Street, London, had procedures for verifying security checks. Each incoming message was supposed to be examined for presence of security checks. If checks were absent, standard procedure required immediate investigation, send message asking agent to confirm checks, suspend operations with that agent, possibly send team to investigate situation in field. The procedures were ignored. SOE London was overwhelmed with traffic from agents across occupied Europe. Dozens of radio operators transmitted daily, processing messages, decoding them, checking security, routing them to appropriate sections, preparing replies. The workload was enormous. Security check verification was treated as routine administrative task rather than critical security procedure. Messages were processed for content without systematic security check verification. The omission was fatal. Multiple captured agents omitted security checks in multiple messages. London never investigated. In some cases, London sent messages explicitly asking agents why security checks were missing. The agents operating under German control sent replies with plausible excuses. Operating under difficult conditions, forced to rush transmission due to security threat, temporarily forgot check due to stress. London accepted the explanations and continued operations. The pattern should have been obvious. Multiple agents all forgetting security checks simultaneously suggested systematic compromise. But pattern analysis required looking at multiple agent networks together. SOE organization was compartmentalized. Different sections handled different agents. No central security office was systematically monitoring all agent communications for security check compliance. The first agent after Lauwers was Thijs Taconis, captured in May 1942. Taconis omitted security checks. London continued operations. Next was Anton van Leer, captured June 1942, then Ari Mui, captured September 1942. By end of 1942, Giskes controlled approximately a dozen SOE radios. He used them to request supplies for resistance operations. SOE responded by dropping weapons containers at designated coordinates. German reception committees collected the supplies. Giskes inventoried them carefully. Sten guns, explosives, detonators, ammunition, radio equipment, money. The supplies intended for Dutch resistance were distributed to German security forces. Giskes also requested more agents. He sent messages stating that resistance networks needed additional personnel, radio operators, weapons instructors, sabotage specialists. SOE recruited agents, trained them, and dispatched them to Netherlands by parachute. The agents jumped into darkness expecting to meet resistance contacts. They landed in German hands. Reception committees waited at the drop zones, not resistance fighters but Abwehr officers who arrested agents immediately upon landing. The agents were taken to detention facilities, interrogated, and added to the roster of captured operators. The brutality of the operation was that agents were sent knowingly into capture. Each agent who omitted security checks was warning London of compromise. Each warning was ignored. Each subsequent agent, parachuted to the same compromised network, was walking into trap that previous agents had tried to warn about. The system designed to prevent this, the security check was functioning correctly from the agent's end. The failure was entirely at London headquarters. 2 agents escaped captivity and reached Spain in 1943. Peter Dorlein and Ben Ubbink escaped from Harenkamp in August 1943. They crossed German-occupied territory, reached Spain, contacted British authorities, and eventually reached London in November 1943. They reported the disaster, that all SOE networks in Netherlands were compromised, that agents were captured, that radios were operated under German control. They provided detailed information about captured agents, German interrogation methods, and how the deception was being conducted. SOE leadership in London disbelieved them. The head of Dutch section, Charles Blizzard, rejected their testimony. Blizzard insisted the networks were functioning. He had been receiving messages from agents for over a year. The messages discussed resistance activities, requested supplies, reported on German operations. The traffic seemed genuine. 2 escaped agents claiming entire networks were compromised seemed less credible than 18 months of message traffic suggesting networks were functioning. Dauerlein and Ubbink were detained as potential German plants agents sent by Germans to deceive British intelligence with false information about compromise. The possibility that Germans would send agents to claim compromise seemed more plausible to SOE leadership than possibility that security check procedures had failed systematically. The 2 men were held in detention for months while SOE continued operations with compromised networks. Additional evidence accumulated through 1943. Several agents in Netherlands had managed to insert warnings into messages despite German supervision. References to non-existent people, mentions of events that had not occurred, subtle inconsistencies that careful analysis would detect. Some messages mentioned resistance activities in locations where German records showed no resistance existed. The inconsistencies should have prompted investigation. Instead, they were attributed to agent confusion or communication difficulties. The Swiss intelligence service provided information to British contacts that SOE networks in Netherlands were compromised. Swiss intelligence had sources in German security services who reported the Englandspiel operation. The information was passed to British intelligence channels. SOE leadership dismissed it as German disinformation. The pattern of denial was consistent. Any information suggesting compromise was rejected. Any information supporting belief that networks were genuine was accepted. By early 1944, Giskes had captured 54 agents and controlled approximately 20 radios. The operation was consuming significant German resources, personnel to guard agents, facilities to detain them, officers to operate deception. The intelligence value was diminishing. SOE was no longer dropping many agents. Supply drops had decreased. The Dutch resistance was aware of British incompetence and had largely stopped coordinating with SOE. Giskes decided to conclude the operation dramatically. On April 1, 1944, Giskes sent final message from captured radios. The message was addressed to Messrs. Blunt, Bingham and successive directors of SOE, London. It read, "In the last time you are trying to make business in Netherlands without our assistance. We think this rather unfair in view of our long and successful cooperation as your sole agent. But never mind, whenever you will come to pay a visit to the continent, you may be assured that you will be received with the same care and result as all those you sent us before. So long." The message was signed and sent in clear text, not encrypted. It was Giskes' taunt revealing the deception in a manner calculated to humiliate SOE. The message confirmed what Dauerlein and Ubbink had reported 6 months earlier. It confirmed what Swiss intelligence had reported. It confirmed what security check omissions had been signaling for 2 years. SOE finally acknowledged the disaster. The investigation that followed was perfunctory. British government did not want public examination of the failure. SOE's reputation was already controversial. The organization operated outside normal military channels, conducted activities that regular military officers considered irregular, consumed resources that could have been used for conventional operations. A public investigation into how SOE had sent 54 agents to certain capture would have been politically devastating. The official inquiry concluded in 1945 found that security check procedures had been inadequately monitored but did not assign individual responsibility. Charles Blizzard, head of Dutch section, was not formally disciplined. The officers who had processed messages without verifying security checks were not identified in the report. The institutional failure was acknowledged, but no individuals were held accountable. SOE was disbanded in 1946, and its records were classified. The full story of Englandspiel remained secret for decades. The human cost was documented in German records. Of 54 agents captured, 47 were executed by Germans between 1943 and 1945. Executions occurred at Mauthausen concentration camp in Austria. Agents were shot in groups, their bodies cremated, their deaths recorded in German paperwork. 7 agents survived the war in detention and were liberated in 1945. They returned to Britain and Netherlands, reported on their experiences, and confirmed the systematic nature of the compromise. The Dutch resistance networks were devastated by Englandspiel. The operation captured not just SOE agents, but Dutch resistance members who had contact with them. German security services used captured agents to identify resistance contacts, leading to additional arrests. Estimates suggest several hundred Dutch resistance members were arrested as a result of information obtained through Englandspiel. Many were executed or died in concentration camps. The damage to Dutch resistance was substantial and lasting. The strategic consequence was that Netherlands was largely closed to SOE operations from 1942 through 1944. Britain had no reliable intelligence from inside Netherlands, could not conduct sabotage operations, could not support resistance activities effectively. German occupation of Netherlands continued with minimal disruption from British-supported resistance. The closure of Netherlands as operational area meant resources could not be diverted there from other theaters. Those resources could have been used in France, Norway, or other occupied territories where operations were more successful. The tactical consequence was that weapons and equipment intended for resistance ended up in German hands. 15 tons of weapons, explosives, ammunition, radio equipment, and money were dropped to German reception committees. Some equipment was used by German forces, some was stored. The irony was that British supply drops were arming German security forces rather than Dutch resistance. The supplies dropped in 1942 to 43 were later used by German forces resisting Allied advance in 1944 to 45. The intelligence consequence was that Germans gained insight into SOE methods, training, equipment, and procedures. Interrogating 54 agents provided comprehensive understanding of how SOE operated. German counterintelligence learned SOE radio procedures, coding systems, parachute drop protocols, agent training content, resistance network organization. This information was used to compromise SOE operations in other countries. German security services in France, Belgium, and Denmark used knowledge gained from Englandspiel to identify and capture SOE agents operating in those countries. The post-war debate over Englandspiel focused on whether the failure was individual incompetence or systemic dysfunction. Advocates of individual blame argued that specific officers, Blizzard, his deputies, the section heads who processed messages, were responsible for ignoring security checks. If those individuals had followed procedures, the compromise would have been detected early and additional agents would not have been sent to capture. Advocates of systemic blame argued that SOE organization was fundamentally flawed. The organization was overextended, understaffed, operating with personnel who lacked proper intelligence training. Many SOE officers were recruited from civilian life with minimal preparation for intelligence work. They understood sabotage and resistance operations, but not counterintelligence and security. The security check system was sound, but the organization lacked capability to implement it properly. The truth was probably combination. Individual officers failed to follow procedures they knew existed, but organizational structure made failure likely overwhelming message traffic, inadequate staffing, poor coordination between sections, lack of central security monitoring. The failure was both individual and systemic. Individuals made mistakes, but the system was designed in a way that made mistakes probable. Comparison with other Allied intelligence operations showed that security check failures were not unique to SOE. American Office of Strategic Services, OSS, experienced similar compromises. Soviet intelligence networks in Western Europe were extensively penetrated by German counterintelligence. The difference was that most other organizations detected compromises eventually and adjusted operations. SOE's Englandspiel was exceptional for duration, 24 months of continuous compromise and scale, 54 agents captured in single operation. The German perspective on Englandspiel was documented in Giskes' memoirs published after the war. Giskes described the operation as counterintelligence success, but also expressed some regret about the agents who were executed. Giskes had argued for keeping captured agents alive as potential exchange prisoners or intelligence sources. German leadership, particularly SS and Gestapo, insisted on execution. Giskes complied because he had no authority to prevent executions, but his memoirs suggest he understood the captured agents were not war criminals, but soldiers conducting military operations behind enemy lines. The ethical dimension of Englandspiel involved culpability. The captured agents who agreed to cooperate faced death if they refused. Their cooperation was coerced. Post-war, some survivors faced accusations of collaboration. Dutch authorities investigated whether agents had cooperated voluntarily or under duress. Most investigations concluded that cooperation was coerced and agents had attempted to warn London through security check omissions. The agents were not collaborators. They were prisoners who did what was necessary to survive while trying to warn their superiors that they were compromised. The institutional legacy was that security check procedures were strengthened across all Allied intelligence services after Englandspiel became known. Post-war intelligence organizations, CIA, MI6, other services implemented redundant verification systems, multiple independent checks, automated verification, systematic pattern analysis, protocols requiring immediate investigation of anomalies. The procedures were designed to prevent recurrence of Englandspiel-type failure where warnings were systematically ignored. The historical lesson was that security procedures are only effective if implemented properly. The security check system SOE used was sound in theory. It failed in practice because procedures were not followed. Human factors, workload, complacency, organizational dysfunction undermined technical security. The lesson applied broadly: security depends on human implementation of technical measures. If humans fail to implement properly, even the best technical security is useless. The final assessment was that Englandspiel was British failure, not German brilliance. Giskes was competent intelligence officer who exploited opportunity, but the opportunity was created by British incompetence. German success came from British failures: failure to verify security checks systematically, failure to investigate anomalies when they appeared, failure to believe reports from escaped agents, failure to coordinate between sections to detect patterns, failure to hold individuals accountable for procedural violations. The Germans did not break SOE codes. SOE gave them access to codes through captured agents. Germans did not compromise SOE networks through superior tradecraft. SOE compromised networks by ignoring their own security procedures. The disaster was self-inflicted through incompetence, complacency, and organizational dysfunction. 54 agents sent to the Netherlands, 54 agents captured, 47 executed, 7 survived, hundreds of Dutch resistance members arrested, 15 tons of weapons delivered to Germans, 2 years of operations serving enemy rather than resistance. The catastrophic failure that happened because London ignored deliberate warnings from agents who were trying to save their successors from the same fate. The game that England lost by refusing to see it was being played. The disaster called Englandspiel.